All the hidden architects, Wall Street's role in Nazi Germany. Ever wonder how the history books tell us the Third Reich appeared overnight? They make it sound like Germany magically conjured military hardware out of thin air through pure ideology. But here's what they don't mention. The real action wasn't happening in Munich or Berlin. It was happening in Manhattan. Corporate America didn't just trade with the Third Reich. They engineered it, bankrolled it, equipped it, and kept the money flowing even while American troops were dying overseas. And here's the twist. Many of these corporations made more profit during wartime than they ever did in peacetime. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you explains exactly why this chapter got erased from your textbooks, and why these same corporations that enabled mass atrocity are still controlling the global economy today. The economic reality of 1933. Let's go back to 1933. Hitler's just grabbed power. Germany's economic situation? Catastrophic. Versailles had buried them under impossible debt. The hyperinflation crisis of the 1920s had evaporated everyone's life savings. 3 in 10 Germans couldn't find work. Families were going hungry. The currency was practically worthless. Hitler's making grand promises about restoring German greatness. But here's what nobody emphasizes. Military might doesn't materialize from propaganda. You need raw materials. You need petroleum. You need capital. Massive amounts of capital. And 1933 Germany? Completely broke. So where did the resources originate? Over Wall Street's German investment. Think about Wall Street in the 1920s. American financial institutions were drowning in liquidity. They were throwing money at anyone who'd take it, and Germany topped the list. Despite losing the Great War, despite owing astronomical reparations, American financiers spotted opportunity. The Dawes Plan of 1924, J.P. Morgan, Dillon Red, Chase National Bank, restructured the entire German debt system. They issued bonds. They created dependency on American financing. Between 1924 and 1931, American capital poured into Germany, $475 million. Adjusted for today, over $8 billion. This wasn't humanitarian aid. These were high-interest loans with major conditions. American financiers literally controlled German economic policy through the Dawes Committee. When Hitler assumed control, this entire infrastructure fell into his lap. And American banks? They didn't withdraw. They expanded their exposure. Versuchseicher, Standard Oil and synthetic fuel technology. Here's where it gets disturbing. Standard Oil, the Rockefeller Empire, formed a partnership with IG Farben, Germany's chemical conglomerate that would later manufacture Zyklon B for the death camps. Joint operations, technology transfers. The critical one? Synthetic petroleum. Germany possessed 0 natural oil reserves, completely landlocked. No colonial territories, no access to Persian Gulf supplies. So explain this. How did German aircraft dominate European skies? How did German armor divisions traverse entire continents? Standard Oil transferred the hydrogenation technology that converted coal into usable fuel. Without this process, Germany's military machine stops functioning within half a year. Standard Oil executives knew exactly what was happening. They maintained personnel in Germany. They received detailed intelligence reports, and they sustained the partnership through 1939, through Poland's invasion, through the war declaration. Absorb that. The corporation that evolved into ExxonMobil provided Hitler with the means to fuel his military apparatus. BIAS, or IBM, and the mechanization of genocide. IBM, the technology giant. They didn't merely export punch card systems to Germany, they engineered them specifically for Jewish population tracking. Every death camp operated IBM equipment processing information. Prisoner identification numbers, transportation logistics, mortality statistics, labor assignments, life and death determinations, all computed on IBM hardware. IBM's German division, Dehomag, serviced these machines throughout the entire war. They dispatched technicians, delivered system upgrades. In IBM headquarters in New York, they collected licensing fees. Every card sold, every system leased, generated revenue for IBM. An American corporation monetized the organization of genocide. They didn't operate the camps. They simply made industrial-scale murder efficient, systematic, quantifiable. And when the war ended, no charges, no accountability, they remained one of the planet's dominant technology corporations. Strict Cousinage, Henry Ford's Nazi connection Ford Motor Company. Henry Ford openly hated Jewish people. He published a newspaper, the Dearborn Independent, that blamed Jews for every social problem: communism, finance, warfare. He actually published the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, a fabricated conspiracy document. Hitler idolized him. Ford's photograph sat on his desk, called him a source of inspiration. Ford's German manufacturing facilities, Ford Werk, they didn't halt production when conflict erupted. They accelerated, manufacturing military transport vehicles for the Wehrmacht, power plants for German military equipment, exploiting concentration camp slave labor. After America joined the war in 1941, the German government designated Ford-Werke as essential military infrastructure. And here's the audacious part. After Germany's defeat, Ford demanded the U.S. government compensate him for Allied bombing damage to his German plants. He wanted American citizens to reimburse him for destruction of facilities producing Nazi equipment. The nerve is staggering. General Motors and German military production. General Motors operated through their German subsidiary, Opel. They manufactured the vehicles transporting Wehrmacht soldiers across Europe, produced engines for Luftwaffe aircraft. By 1939, Opel was creating half of Germany's military trucks and a third of their armored vehicles. The Blitzkrieg that decimated Poland and France moved on General Motors' infrastructure. GM leadership maintained oversight throughout. After Pearl Harbor, when America entered the European conflict, GM's Opel facilities continued production. The corporation insisted they had no control over international subsidiaries. Translation, the profits were too substantial to stop. And post-war, GM sued the American government for $33 million covering damage to German plants. They wanted compensation for Allied bombing of factories producing Nazi war equipment. And they prevailed, got paid. Chase Bank and occupied France. Chase National Bank, now J.P. Morgan Chase. In 1940, after Nazi occupation of Paris, Chase's Parisian branch froze Jewish customer accounts. They assisted the Nazis in liquidating assets, stripping wealth from families being deported to extermination camps. The bank operated in Nazi-controlled France until 1944, 3 years past Pearl Harbor. An American financial institution helping Nazis confiscate Jewish assets while American servicemen died liberating Europe. Documentation that emerged in the 1990s proved Chase leadership knew everything. They received reports. They made conscious decisions. They maintained operations because it generated profit. The corporate Webb DuPont supplied chemicals to Germany. Union Banking Corporation, managed by Prescott Bush, yes, the grandfather of George W. Bush. They held Nazi financial assets, funded German steel manufacturing. ITT Corporation sold communications technology to the German armed forces, maintained representatives, negotiating with Nazi officials throughout the conflict. And understand this, these weren't unauthorized operations. These were executive-level strategies. CEOs had full knowledge, shareholders collected dividends, and the American government ignored it until public outrage became impossible to suppress. The scale of complicity. Let's examine the numbers because the magnitude is overwhelming. IG Farben exploited over 80,000 slave workers from Auschwitz alone, worked them to death producing synthetic rubber and fuel. IBM Systems tracked every single one. Ford-Werke manufactured 78,000 Wehrmacht trucks. Opel produced 29,000. Combined, that represents over 1/3 of German military logistics capacity. Without American-made trucks, Nazi forces don't overrun France, don't reach Moscow, don't transport Jews to camps. The Holocaust demanded industrial efficiency, and American corporations supplied it for financial gain. The absence of justice. Here's what should outrage you. After Germany's defeat, none of these corporations faced real consequences. Not genuinely. There were proceedings, the Nuremberg industrialist trials, prosecuted IG Farben and corrupt leadership. But American companies? Protected because the U.S. government needed their industrial capacity for reconstruction. The Marshall Plan demanded manufacturing capability. The Cold War required production facilities. So Ford, GM, IBM received government contracts, Marshall Plan funding, and the documentation got classified, sealed, buried. Researchers needed 50 years to uncover the complete picture. In 1998, litigation forced disclosure. Survivors filed lawsuits. Evidence surfaced. Correspondence, internal memos, contracts proving executive knowledge, proving profit. The settlements? Pathetic. In 2000, German industry established a $5 billion fund for slave laborers. Ford and GM contributed $20 million combined. Insignificant compared to wartime profits. IBM paid nothing, denied awareness until the 2000s, 60 years later. And even then, settled privately. No acknowledgement, no apology, just silence money. The modern pattern. Now, here's the truly disturbing reality. This wasn't exceptional. It's the blueprint. American corporations conducting business with authoritarian regimes because profit margins override ethics. And it's occurring right now. Consider China, Apple, Nike, Tesla, all manufacturing in Xinjiang, where Uyghur Muslims are detained in concentration facilities, forced labor, mass surveillance, cultural elimination. The State Department officially designated it genocide. And American corporations? They lobby against sanctions, claim supply chains are too intricate, insist they cannot verify labor conditions. It's identical rhetoric. 1930s. We can't control foreign subsidiaries. Today, supply chains are complex. Different phrasing, identical excuse, identical profit motivation. Apple generated $365 billion in revenue last year. A significant portion derives from Chinese manufacturing utilizing forced labor, and they resist every regulatory attempt. Google developed a censored search platform for China called Project Dragonfly. Would have filtered results, concealed Tiananmen Square, suppressed human rights information. They canceled it after employee protests, but the intention was transparent. Access to 1 billion users justifies compromising on freedom. Facebook's algorithms facilitated genocide in Myanmar. The Rohingya massacre, over 25,000 murdered, was coordinated through Facebook posts. The company issued an apology, promised improved moderation, and continued operations in Myanmar because shutdown means losing users, losing advertising revenue. Energy corporations conduct business with Saudi Arabia despite Khashoggi's assassination, despite Yemen being destroyed with American weapons. Defense contractors sell to dictatorships. Technology companies construct surveillance infrastructure for authoritarian governments. Cisco engineered the Great Firewall. Oracle sells database systems to track political dissidents. It's not identical to the 1930s, but the ethical calculation remains. Profit versus principles. And profit always prevails. Where's the fundamental truth? Here's the harsh reality nobody articulates. Corporations lack morality. They have investors, and investors demand returns, quarterly results, rising stock valuations. If conducting business with a genocidal government is legal and profitable, they'll engage. Executives will rationalize it. We're generating employment. We can't remain competitive otherwise. It's nuanced. And they'll contribute to philanthropic causes, endow museums, fund educational institutions, burnish their public image, exactly like Ford and GM did, exactly like IBM did. You can construct hospitals with one hand while building gas chambers with the other. As long as the hospitals are visible and the gas chambers remain hidden, history remembers you favorably. That's the system. Ars, what this means. So what do you do with this knowledge? First, recognize that World War II wasn't just military conflict, it was financed. American banks restructured German obligations. American manufacturers built German vehicles, aircraft, fuel. American technology tracked victims. Without Wall Street, Hitler doesn't rebuild. Without Ford and GM, the Wehrmacht doesn't mobilize. Without IBM, the Holocaust isn't industrialized. They didn't wear Nazi insignia, but they enabled everything for profit. Second, accountability is meaningless. Most executives died wealthy. Most corporations paid minimal settlements decades afterward, and they're still operating, still profiting. The pattern continues because consequences don't exist. Third, monitor where your money goes. That smartphone you're holding might be assembled by Uyghurs in detention facilities. Those sneakers? Same. That electric vehicle? Elon Musk conducts business with Chinese surveillance corporations. Your spending funds this. Not deliberately, but it does. And corporations rely on you not caring enough to stop. Fourth, this isn't speculation, it's documented. Congressional inquiries, litigation, declassified materials. It's all public record, but it's not taught, not discussed. Because the implicated companies still wield power, still lobby, still control information. If this information angers you, if you're realizing your education omitted the most critical part, excellent. Because this narrative doesn't conclude in 1945. It repeats. Different nations, different products, same profit incentive, same justifications. And unless people understand, unless this becomes public discourse, it'll perpetuate. So hit that like button if you're finished with the sanitized version of history. Subscribe, because I'm not stopping here. There's more, much more. And comment which contemporary corporation you believe is engaging in this pattern right now, because I guarantee you're funding something you'd despise if you understood the truth. Thanks for watching. Stay critical. History isn't finished. It's just better disguised. And the same dynasties that profited from Hitler, they're still directing the world. Different labels, same lineages, same strategies. We just stopped watching.